We're here in Brooklyn for the 135-pound showdown between Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. And Tank Davis is a particular case because he is a dominant knockout artist who may at this moment rank as the sport's most exciting dominant knockout artist, and you don't often see that at the 135-pound level, where you're far more accustomed to seeing technical boxers with high-level boxing skills. And I'm not saying that Tank Davis is not a technical boxer with high-level boxing skills. He is. But part of what sets him apart as a puncher is that he creates the opportunities for lightning explosions in the ring with his boxing skill. He will start the fighting in a mode that resembles that of a counterpuncher. He will feel his way along through early opportunities, seeking just the right place to spring a trap. And when he springs the trap, he hits primarily with the left hand with shocking power and often demolishes his opponents in relatively short order. So 30 wins, no losses, 28 by knockout. Fantastic record so far. Roach is one of the most highly esteemed of his opponents so far, but not so highly esteemed that he's expected to have a big chance against Tank Davis. Tank is the obvious and not necessarily overwhelming, but very dominant favorite in the fight. Well, so far in Tank's 30-fight career, few, if any, weaknesses have manifested themselves. He has dominated his opponents. He has 28 knockouts among those 30 wins. He has shown himself to be both a skilled boxer and a dynamite puncher. And if there's a weakness in his game that Roach can exploit, that's something that Roach is going to show us Saturday night. That's something that Roach is going to set up and demonstrate via his own preparation and thought process for the fight. As a guy who sits at ringside and watches, I haven't seen that yet. Normally, against a southpaw, the conventional fighter is looking to land a straight right hand. Logic says that if Roach is going to gain some purchase in the fight, particularly early in the fight, and is going to in some way put Tank on the defensive, it's likely to be through the vehicle of the straight right hand. And the straight right hand against a fighter who's turned around to the opposite side of what you're most accustomed to looking at is functioning somewhat like a jab. But of course, it's your power hand rather than your jab hand, so it might actually have more impact on it. If I were Lamont Roach and I were fighting Tank Davis and I were the underdog in the fight, as is in fact the case here, I would certainly try to find out early whether Davis can stop or handle my straight right hand. I think every fighter wants the kind of pressure that Tank Davis is now dealing with. I think every fighter wants to become a star relatively early in his career. I think every fighter would like to be seen as the #1 knockout artist on the block, and somebody who's capable not just of beating opponents, but destroying them. So I think that while, yes, the public now has certain expectations about Tank and what he can do and what he should do, those are exactly the expectations that he was trying to create and trying to nurture as he built through this stage of his career. And I think he should find himself very happy and satisfied that he is now seen as maybe the most dominant knockout artist in the sport at this moment, regardless of weight class. One of my mentors and one of the smartest boxing commentators I ever knew, Larry Merchant, used to say, if you're talking about retirement, then functionally you're already retired. I'm not sure that's the case with Tank Davis. I think that he has a grainy life. He comes from a rough section of Baltimore. He was brought into boxing at an early age by his father. He had friends on the streets who were damaged or shot or killed within the course of what in some sections of Baltimore might be seen as a relatively normal childhood. So he has dealt with and is accustomed to the pain and the sorrows of a disadvantaged urban life in America. And I don't think it's unusual that someone with that kind of background would, regardless of his success level in boxing, be talking about the pain, the difficulty, the burdens on his family, the burdens that he feels in trying to escape from that kind of thing the friends that he's lost. Does it remind me of Mike Tyson? Yes, absolutely. I knew Tyson early on in his career and had conversations with him about his background in Brooklyn growing up, and he was quite upfront and unabashed about speaking of the emotional difficulties that attended all of that. There was a famous piece of video of Mike prior to an amateur fight crying literally on Teddy Atlas's shoulder as he prepared to go into the ring, even with, padded gloves and headgear for an amateur fight. So I think it's very normal for a fighter from Tank's background and with Tank's preparation in the sport to feel emotional about it, to feel a certain sense of loss for the things that he has seen on the streets and in his neighborhood, and for that to be a part of his persona going into a big fight like this one. When Mike Tyson was first finding his way to public exposure and stardom, the two men who were handling his career, Jimmy Jacobs and Bill Caton, made a highlight videotape of most of his early knockouts. And this was at a point when he was 15, 16, 17 fights into his career and had not yet gone the distance in any fight. And the videotape was a spectacular rock'em sock'em highlight reel of Mike knocking people across the ring into the ropes, Mike knocking people for cartwheels, and fighters literally flying off their feet onto the canvas because of his shocking power. And my feeling is that at this moment you could probably make a very similar highlight reel from Tank Davis's knockouts, because he is the lightweight 135-pound version of what Mike was in the first 19 fights of his career as a heavyweight. And as Tyson's experience shows, and as Tank's experience is likely to show at some point along the way, you don't do that forever. You don't knock out every opponent throughout your entire career. There's a reason why you work and learn in the gym to develop boxing skills, because there's going to become a point at which it's going to be necessary for you to have all the skills and not just the overwhelming power to knock your opponents off their feet. Is that going to be the case Saturday night against Lamont Roach? It's up to Roach to prove that. It's up to Roach to prove that he has the chin to test Tank's power. And those are the things that we're going to find out Saturday night at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Fortunately for Tank Davis, he is in what amounts, in my view, to a loaded division. There are a handful of likely opponents who have the kind of name value and cachet that would attract people to want to see the fight. Keyshawn Davis, who's a part of the whole Midwestern Terrence Crawford structure now, put on a great performance last week in a knockout victory. Vasily Lomachenko, even though he's 37 years old, is still regarded as a great and cosmic talent, only has one loss, and a battle between Davis's punching power and Lomachenko's immaculate boxing skills would be something that people want to see. There are various others in the weight class. There's the possibility of a rematch down the road with Ryan Garcia, who still has name value and a fan following. Maybe the best of all tests for Tank Davis is Shakur Stevenson, because just as Davis is seen as the star offensive fighter, the star puncher in the division, Shakur is seen as the star defender, the star overall boxer, and he has been quite outspoken in saying that he has the talent and the skill to beat Tank Davis, and there are advocates of Shakur who would say, yes, absolutely he does. So probably the fight that most people most want to see right now is Tank Davis versus Shakur Stevenson, and that tells us that's probably the fight for which we're going to have to wait the longest. I would love to tell the general public that I believe that Lamont Roach has the talent and the capability of putting Tank Davis into a real close fight, a nip and tuck matchup that tests whether Davis can fight beyond just his punching skills in a boxing mode to eke out a decision victory down the stretch. And that's not what I think is going to happen. Based on what I've seen, I think that Tank Davis is a special puncher with special finishing power, and that in this Baltimore Tank Davis versus Washington Lamont Roach matchup, unless Roach is a far more skilled boxer than I know or have seen him to be, he is likely to fall prey to Tank's punching power somewhere around the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th round. Yes, I think Tank will win by knockout or technical knockout. Either he'll put Roach to sleep, or Roach will have to be rescued by the referee. More likely the second of the two options, but I do believe that Tank's extraordinary punching power will be the thing that decides this fight.